The night was dark, and the highway stretched out like a black ribbon under the empty sky. James drove slowly, the hum of his old truck the only sound breaking the silence. He had taken this road many times before, but tonight felt different. The air was heavy, still, almost too quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Up ahead, his headlights caught something unusual. A car stood on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking weakly. A woman stood beside it, her hands pressed against her head, looking around nervously. James slowed down. As he pulled over, he noticed the fear in her eyes. She wasn't just worried about a flat tire. She was looking over her shoulder, scanning the shadows, as if someone or something was out there, watching. He stepped out and called, "Need some help?" The woman hesitated, then nodded quickly. Her voice shook when she answered. "Yes, the tire. It went flat. Please, can you help me?" James took a quick look. The flat tire wasn't hard to fix. But what struck him was her body language. Her hands trembled. Her eyes darted constantly, as though she expected danger to leap from the darkness at any second. "Don't worry," James said, trying to sound calm. "I'll get it fixed in no time." He grabbed the jack and tools from his truck and knelt beside the car. As he worked, he kept glancing at her. She was pacing, chewing her lip, and every time a car passed in the distance, she flinched. Finally, he tightened the last bolt and lowered the car back down. "All done," he said. But before he could ask for her name, she leaned close, her whisper sharp and urgent. "If they find me, we're both in danger." James froze. "What do you mean? Who's after you?" But she didn't answer. She climbed into her car with shaky hands, started the engine, and sped off into the night without even a thank you. Her taillights disappeared into the darkness, leaving James standing there in confusion. For a moment, he thought about chasing after her, demanding an explanation. But something in her eyes told him it was bigger than anything he wanted to get involved in. With a sigh, he packed his tools, got back in his truck, and continued home. Still, her words clung to his mind. "If they find me, we're both in danger." Who was they? And why would helping her put him in danger? That night, James tossed and turned in bed. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her frightened face. He told himself she was just paranoid, maybe running from an abusive partner or the police. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. The morning came too quickly. James dragged himself from bed, hoping a cup of coffee would clear his head. As he stood in his kitchen, he heard tires crunching over gravel. He froze. Slowly, he walked to the window and peered through the curtains. His heart skipped a beat. A black SUV sat in front of his house. Sleek. Shiny. Tinted windows so dark he couldn't see inside. The engine purred softly, like a predator waiting to strike. James swallowed hard. His neighborhood was quiet. Nobody drove cars like that here. Nobody just sat in front of someone's home without a reason. At first, he tried to calm himself. Maybe they were lost. Maybe they were waiting for someone. But as the minutes dragged on, the SUV didn't move. The engine kept running. And not once did anyone step out. James stepped back from the curtain, his chest tight. He tried to shake it off, but the timing was too perfect. The woman's warning. The fear in her eyes. Her desperate words. "If they find me, we're both in danger." Had they found him? He tried to convince himself it was nothing. He made his coffee, sat at the table, but his eyes kept drifting to the window. He could feel the presence of the SUV, even without looking. When he finally gathered the courage to peek again, his blood ran cold. The SUV was still there. The windows still black, hiding whoever sat inside. The engine still running. James whispered to himself, "This isn't right." His mind raced. Should he call the police? What would he even say that a car was parked outside? They wouldn't take him seriously. Another thought hit him. What if the police were part of this? What if calling them made things worse? Hours passed, but the SUV didn't leave. James sat in silence, every creak of the house making him jump. He couldn't focus, couldn't think. He felt trapped in his own home, like prey being watched by unseen hunters. By afternoon, sweat clung to his neck. He couldn't take it anymore. He opened the door, stepped onto the porch, and shouted, "Hey, what do you want?" No response. The SUV's engine roared louder for a moment, then quieted again. James felt a chill crawl up his spine. Whoever was inside heard him. Whoever was inside wanted him to know they weren't leaving. He stepped back inside and locked the door. His hands shook as he grabbed his phone, scrolling for a number to call. Then he froze again. From outside, he heard a sound. The crunch of footsteps on gravel. Slow. Heavy. Moving closer to his door. James held his breath, gripping his phone so tight his knuckles turned white. He dared not move, dared not speak. And then, silence. The footsteps stopped. James's heart thundered in his chest. He knew now this was no coincidence. The woman's warning was real. And whatever was inside that black SUV, it was watching him. The black SUV stayed outside James's house the entire night. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined dark shapes moving outside his window, silent figures watching him from behind the tinted glass. He would wake up drenched in sweat, his heart pounding. By morning, the SUV was still there. The engine purred steadily, like some machine that never grew tired. The windows were so dark that James couldn't see inside, couldn't tell if there was one person or many. James tried to act normal. He made himself breakfast, turned on the TV, even tried to read the newspaper. But every few minutes, his eyes drifted back to the window. The SUV hadn't moved. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He stepped outside, his voice shaky but loud. "Who are you? What do you want?" No response. The SUV sat there, silent and still, like a predator waiting. James took a step closer. His instinct screamed at him to go back inside, but his curiosity was stronger. He walked across his yard until he stood just a few feet from the SUV. That's when he saw it. Inside, through the faint reflection on the glass, he caught a glimpse of something glowing, small lights flickering, like strange symbols dancing across a screen. They weren't letters or numbers he recognized. They looked alien. James's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a car. Something inside was watching him, studying him. Before he could react, the SUV door suddenly opened. A tall man stepped out. He wore black clothes, a black cap pulled low over his face. His skin looked pale under the morning light, almost unnatural. His eyes, cold and sharp, locked onto James. "You shouldn't have helped her," the man said, his voice low and calm. James froze. "What do you mean? Who are you talking about?" The man tilted his head. "The woman on the road. She doesn't belong here. And now, neither do you." James's chest tightened. His first instinct was to deny everything, to say he didn't know what the man was talking about. But he couldn't. Somehow, this stranger knew. The man stepped closer, his movements slow, deliberate. "If you're smart, you'll forget her. You'll forget what you saw. Stay quiet, and maybe we'll let you live." James's voice cracked. "And if I don't?" The man's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Then you'll disappear. Just like all the others." Without another word, he stepped back into the SUV. The door shut with a heavy thud. The engine roared, and the SUV sped off, disappearing down the street. James stood there, trembling. His legs felt weak, his mind racing. Just like all the others. What did that mean? How many had they taken before him? He stumbled back inside and locked the door, his hands shaking so badly he could barely turn the key. He sat down, trying to calm his breathing. His thoughts raced back to the woman. Her fear. Her warning. It was all true. Whoever these people were, they were after her. And now, they were after him too. James decided to search for answers. He pulled out his laptop and typed in every phrase he could think of: black SUVs, strange symbols, missing people. Hours passed as he scrolled through forums, old newspaper articles, conspiracy sites. Most of it sounded crazy: alien abductions, government cover-ups, secret societies. But one detail kept appearing: witnesses often mentioned black SUVs, always watching, always following. James leaned back in his chair. His head pounded. He wanted to believe it was all paranoia, but he couldn't ignore what he had seen with his own eyes. That night, James heard it again. The soft crunch of tires on gravel. His heart dropped. Slowly, he peeked through the curtain. The black SUV was back. This time, there were two. They parked on opposite sides of the street, their engines humming quietly. No one stepped out. No one said a word. But James felt the pressure, the weight of their presence pressing in on him. Then, something even stranger happened. Small drones lifted from the roof of one SUV, tiny machines, no bigger than a fist. They hovered silently, glowing with red lights, scanning his house with beams that flickered across the walls and windows. James ducked down, his breath sharp. These weren't ordinary people. These weren't ordinary machines. He crawled across the floor to the back door, his body shaking. He couldn't stay here. They were watching him, studying him. He needed to escape, but where could he go? Just as he reached the door, a sound froze him in place. Knock. A soft, deliberate knock at the front door. James's blood turned cold. He pressed his back against the wall, his mind screaming. The knock came again. Louder this time. And then, a voice. Calm. Patient. Too calm. James. We know you're in there. Open the door. James squeezed his eyes shut, his whole body trembling. Whoever they were, they knew his name. He thought about the woman again, her desperate eyes, her whispered warning. He should have left her there on the side of the road. But it was too late. The black SUVs had found him. And they weren't going to leave until he made a choice: run, or face whatever waited behind that door. The knocking at James's door did not stop. 3 sharp raps. A pause. Then 3 more. Each strike made his chest tighten, like his heart was being hammered from the outside. He crouched low against the wall, barely breathing. The SUVs hummed outside like silent beasts, their drones hovering in the night air. James, the voice called again, steady and calm. You can't hide. Open the door. James squeezed his eyes shut. He didn't answer. He didn't move. Then suddenly another sound. A different sound. Knock. 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 This time it came from the back door. James froze. 2 doors. 2 sets of knocks. Whoever these people were, they had surrounded him. He was trapped. But before panic could swallow him whole, a whisper cut through the noise. James, it's me. His eyes shot wide. The voice was soft, familiar. The woman. Crawling across the floor, James reached the back door. He pressed his ear against it. How do I know it's really you? He whispered back. There was a pause. Then her voice, trembling, you helped me with the tire. I told you if they found me, we'd both be in danger. Well, they found you. James's heart pounded. He unlocked the back door and pulled it open just enough to see her. She was pale, her hair messy, her eyes wide with fear. Hurry, she hissed. They're outside. James let her in quickly and bolted the door behind them. What is going on? He demanded, his voice low but shaking. Who are they? Who are you? The woman leaned against the wall, catching her breath. Her clothes were torn, dirt smeared across her face. She looked exhausted, broken. But her eyes, they were sharp, glowing faintly under the kitchen light. James stepped back. Your eyes. She blinked quickly, turning away. I don't have time to explain everything. But you need to understand, those men outside, the SUVs, they are not here for you. They're here for me. And now you're part of it. James clenched his fists. That's not an answer. Tell me the truth. Her shoulders slumped. For a moment, she looked human, fragile, tired, afraid. Then she whispered, I'm not from here. I'm not from your world. James stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, to say it was a joke. But she didn't. Her face was serious, her voice steady. You're saying, you're an alien? He asked. She nodded slowly. I came here to escape them. The ones in the SUVs. They look human, but they're not. They're enforcers. Hunters. They track people like me, make sure none of us escape. James shook his head. This is insane. Aliens. Hunters. Why me? Why show up on that road? Because you stopped, she said simply. No one else would have. You helped me. That means you're marked now. They don't let witnesses live. Her words hit James like a punch. His knees felt weak. He had always lived an ordinary life, working at the garage, watching TV at night, fixing things around the house. Now he was being told he was part of something he couldn't even understand. Then tell me everything, he demanded. Why are you running? What do they want? The woman looked toward the window, where faint red lights flickered as the drones circled outside. She lowered her voice. My people, we've lived among you for centuries. Hidden. Disguised. The enforcers control us, keep us silent. But some of us want freedom. We want to live without fear. That's why I ran. James swallowed hard. And they'll kill anyone who helps you. She nodded. Yes. And now they've seen you. Silence filled the kitchen. James's mind raced. It didn't make sense, yet deep down, he felt it was true. The glowing symbols he had glimpsed in the SUV, the way her eyes shimmered unnaturally, it wasn't just paranoia. Then what do we do? James finally asked. Her answer came fast. We run. Now. Before they come inside. James hesitated. His house, his life, everything he knew, it would all be left behind. But outside, the drones hummed louder, the sound of their scanning beams crawling across the walls. He made his choice. Let's go. They slipped out through the back, moving quickly across the yard into the shadows of the trees. James's breath was heavy, his legs shaking with each step. Behind them, the SUV's engines roared. Flashing beams swept across the neighborhood. The hunters had realized she was inside. Faster, the woman urged, grabbing his hand. They dashed across a field, the tall grass whipping against their legs. A spotlight burst to life behind them, sweeping across the field. Run! James shouted. The ground shook as the SUVs tore off the road, engines howling, headlights blazing like twin predators chasing prey. James and the woman dove into the trees, branches clawing at their clothes. The roar of engines grew closer, the lights piercing through the woods. Finally, after what felt like hours, they collapsed behind a fallen log, gasping for air. The SUVs slowed in the distance, their lights searching but not finding. For the first time, James saw the woman truly up close. Her skin shimmered faintly in the moonlight, as though something beneath it was not entirely human. Her eyes glowed again, brighter this time. James whispered, "What are you?" She looked at him, her voice soft but filled with weight. "A refugee. A fugitive. And now, you are too." The forest was dark, filled with the sound of their ragged breathing and the distant growl of engines. James leaned against the fallen log, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his forehead. Beside him, the woman crouched low, her glowing eyes darting through the shadows. "They're still looking for us," she whispered. "We can't stay here." James wiped his face with his sleeve. "I'm not built for this. I'm a mechanic, not a fugitive." "You are now," she said flatly. "If they catch you, they won't ask questions. They'll erase you." Her words sent a cold shiver down James's spine. He glanced back through the trees. In the distance, he saw beams of white light sweeping across the forest floor. The SUVs were moving slowly now, methodical, hunting. The faint buzz of drones carried through the night like angry wasps. "Where do we even go?" James asked. The woman hesitated, then said, "There's a safe place, but it's far. An old warehouse near the edge of the city. We can hide there for a while. But we need to move fast." James nodded, though fear twisted in his stomach. He had no reason to trust her, but what choice did he have? They set off again, weaving through the trees. The ground was uneven, branches snapping underfoot. Every noise made James flinch, certain the hunters would hear. Behind them, the SUVs revved louder, the search tightening. Red beams flickered through the woods, scanning, seeking. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the trees. Metallic, amplified. "Stop running. You cannot escape." James's heart pounded. The woman grabbed his arm, pulling him forward. "Don't listen. Just keep moving." They stumbled onto an old dirt road. James's lungs burned, his legs screaming for rest, but the woman never slowed. Her strength seemed unnatural, her movements fast and precise. "Who are you really?" James asked between gasps. "What are you?" Her eyes flickered, glowing brighter under the moonlight. "Later. First we survive." A sudden crash behind them cut her words short. One of the SUVs had plowed through the trees, headlights blinding, engine roaring like a beast unleashed. "Run," she shouted. They bolted down the dirt road as the SUV closed in, its tires spitting gravel. James stumbled, nearly falling, but the woman pulled him back to his feet. The roar of the engine grew deafening. Then, with a sharp turn, the SUV cut in front of them, blocking the road. Its doors opened. Two men in black stepped out, weapons in their hands. James froze. The men didn't look normal. Their movements were too smooth, too calculated. Their pale faces glowed faintly under the headlights, their eyes cold and empty. The woman pushed James behind her. "Stay back." One of the men spoke, his voice flat, unnatural. "Return with us, or both of you will be erased." The woman's body tensed. Her hands curled into fists. "Not this time." James blinked. For a moment, her skin seemed to shimmer, as if something beneath it was shifting, fighting to break free. Before the men could react, she lunged forward with inhuman speed. She struck one across the chest, sending him crashing into the side of the SUV with a metallic thud. Sparks flew as he slid to the ground, twitching like a broken machine. The second man raised his weapon, but James, acting on instinct, grabbed a rock and hurled it with all his strength. It struck the man's wrist, knocking the weapon away. The woman slammed into him next, twisting his arm until there was a sickening crack. He dropped, motionless, his pale face flickering like static. James's eyes widened. "They're not human, are they?" She turned to him, breathing hard. "No. They're something else. A fusion of human and machine. Hunters." The SUV's headlights flickered. The engine sputtered, then roared back to life. James grabbed her hand. "We need to go now." They ran again, darting into the woods before more could arrive. The sounds of engines and drones filled the night, chasing them relentlessly. After what felt like forever, the trees thinned, and James saw it, a row of abandoned factories, their broken windows glinting in the moonlight. "There," the woman said. "We'll be safe for a little while." They slipped inside one of the warehouses, the air thick with dust and rust. James collapsed against a wall, his chest heaving, sweat dripping from his face. "Safe," he said bitterly. "You call this safe? They're everywhere." The woman crouched across from him, her glowing eyes softer now. "You don't understand. You're still alive because you helped me. If you hadn't, they would have erased you already." James laughed harshly. "Some reward. Now I'm running for my life." Her expression grew serious. "You don't see it yet. But you're not just caught in this, you're part of it. There's something inside you. Something they fear." James stared at her, stunned. "Inside me? What are you talking about?" She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device, no bigger than a phone. It pulsed with a dim blue light. She held it out. "This reacts to you. Only you. That's why they're here. That's why you're still alive." James hesitated, then touched the device. Instantly, it lit up brighter, symbols glowing across its surface. A low hum filled the warehouse, vibrating in the air. James jerked his hand back, terrified. "What the hell is that?" Her voice was calm, steady. "Proof. Proof that humans are more than they remember. And now, you are the key." James's mouth went dry. The words sank into him like ice. He was no longer just an ordinary man. He was something else. Something the hunters feared. Outside, engines roared again. The SUVs were closing in. The woman's eyes locked on his. "They won't stop now. You have a choice, James. Run forever, or fight." The warehouse was silent except for James's heavy breathing and the low hum of the strange device. Its glow painted the walls in ghostly blue, flickering with symbols he didn't understand. James stared at it, his hand still trembling. "What is this thing? Why does it react to me?" The woman watched him carefully, her glowing eyes reflecting the light. Because you are human. And humans are not what you think they are. James let out a nervous laugh. I'm just a guy who fixes cars. I live in a small town. I pay my bills late. I'm not special. But the woman shook her head. You are all special. Every human. You just don't remember. Her words made James's chest tighten. What do you mean, don't remember? She sat down across from him, the device pulsing between them. A long time ago, before your history was rewritten, humans ruled the stars. You had fleets, weapons, worlds. You were feared across the galaxy. James blinked, stunned. That's impossible. We can't even get past the moon. That's what you've been told, she said quietly. That's what they want you to believe. The enforcers, the ones in the SUVs, they erased your past. They buried it. Because if humans remembered who they were, no one could control you. James's hands shook as he looked back at the glowing device. And this proves it. She nodded. It's a key. A relic from that time. Only human blood can wake it. When you touched it, it responded. That means the old power is still inside you. James leaned back, his mind spinning. His whole life he had been ordinary, invisible. And now he was being told his entire species had once been warriors, conquerors. That their memories had been stolen. This is insane, he whispered. Why me? Why now? The woman's voice softened. Because the enforcers are afraid. They've been watching Earth for centuries, making sure no one finds the truth. But you stumbled into it. You helped me, and now you're part of it. James's head dropped into his hands. I didn't ask for this. I don't want any of this. She leaned forward. None of us ask. But history doesn't care what we want. It comes for us anyway. Before James could answer, a low rumble shook the warehouse. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Outside, engines growled, growing louder. They've found us, she whispered. James's heart jumped into his throat. He grabbed the device, holding it tight. The glow pulsed stronger, brighter, as if sensing the danger. The woman stood quickly. Listen to me. That device is a weapon, but it's also a beacon. When you used it, it sent a signal. Somewhere out there, something ancient woke up. The enforcers will do anything to stop you from using it again. James stared at the device, horrified. A beacon? You mean I just told them where I am? Her expression was grim. Not just them. Everyone. The warehouse shook again, this time harder. The sound of metal groaning echoed through the building. Outside, headlights cut through the broken windows. The woman pulled him to his feet. You have to make a choice now. Hide and die, or use it. James looked at her, his stomach twisting with fear. I don't even know how. You don't need to, she said. It knows you. Suddenly, the roof exploded inward. A drone the size of a small car crashed through, its rotors slicing the air. Red lights glowed from its sensors as it scanned the room. The device in James's hand pulsed so bright it hurt his eyes. Without thinking, he raised it. A beam of blue light shot out, striking the drone. It froze midair, its rotors sparking violently, then collapsed to the ground in a shower of smoke and sparks. James dropped the device in shock. What just happened? The woman smiled faintly. You used it. Instinct. Just like your ancestors. But James didn't feel like a warrior. His legs were shaking, his throat dry. He bent down, staring at the device lying on the floor. It's too much, he whispered. I'm not ready for this. She placed a hand on his shoulder. No human ever is. But your kind was built for it. That's what they fear. The warehouse doors rattled violently. The sound of boots echoed outside. More enforcers were coming. James picked up the device again, his hands trembling but firm. The hum grew louder, filling the air with power. Why me? He asked again. The woman's glowing eyes locked on his. Because you are proof. Proof that humans are more than slaves, more than prey. You are the spark that will remind the galaxy of what your people once were. The warehouse doors burst open. Enforcers in black poured in, weapons glowing with alien energy. James held up the device. The symbols raced across its surface, faster and faster. The air shook, vibrating with power. And then the ground itself began to move. Metal panels hidden beneath the warehouse floor shifted, sliding open. Ancient machines rose from the ground, covered in dust and rust but humming with life. Small drones, sleek and sharp, lifted into the air, their eyes glowing the same blue as the device. James stumbled back, stunned. "What are they?" The woman's voice trembled with awe. "Your inheritance. Buried long ago. Waiting for you to wake them." The enforcers opened fire. Blue drones swarmed, their beams slicing through the attackers, cutting them down in flashes of light. James stood frozen, the device glowing in his grip. He had unleashed something he didn't understand, something terrifying and powerful. The woman turned to him, her voice urgent. "This is just the beginning. You've called the past back to life. And now, the galaxy will hear you." James stared at the swarm of ancient machines surrounding him, his heart racing. For the first time, he felt the weight of what she had said. Humans weren't just survivors. They were something far greater. And now, the secret was awake again. The warehouse was no longer silent. It was alive. The air buzzed with energy as the ancient machines James had awakened hovered in formation. Their sleek, blue-lit frames hummed with a strange intelligence, moving like predators waiting for orders. The enforcers outside hesitated, their weapons glowing, their shadows long in the broken doorway. James stood in the middle of it all, gripping the device so tightly his knuckles turned white. His chest rose and fell with quick breaths. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. But the machines, the inheritance, as the woman called them, moved as if he were their commander. The woman's glowing eyes watched him carefully. "They will not stop. They will keep sending more until you are dead or captured. You must show them." James swallowed hard. "Show them what?" Her voice was steady. "That humans do not kneel." The words struck him like a hammer. He had spent his whole life bending to things bigger than himself, bills, bosses, bad luck. But now the galaxy expected him to stand against monsters with weapons older than his world. His stomach twisted. Outside, the enforcers advanced. One raised a sleek rifle. "Fire," a metallic voice ordered. Bolts of energy ripped through the doorway, scorching walls and tearing holes in the concrete. James ducked instinctively, but the machines didn't move to shield themselves. Instead, they surged forward in a flash of blue light. The drones sliced through the air, beams of energy firing from their cores. The first wave of enforcers dropped instantly, their rifles clattering to the ground. The rest stumbled back, shocked, unprepared for resistance. James stood frozen as the battle unfolded in front of him. The machines fought with precision, anticipating every move, striking faster than human eyes could follow. It was beautiful and terrifying. The woman turned to James. "They answer to you. Direct them." He shook his head. "I don't know how." "Then learn," she snapped. "Because if you don't, we all die here." The warehouse trembled as another explosion rocked the ground. James staggered but raised the device instinctively. The glowing symbols raced across its surface again, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. And then, he felt it. A connection. The machines weren't just weapons. They were listening. They were waiting. James's voice cracked. "Protect us." The swarm shifted instantly, forming a glowing wall between him and the incoming fire. Energy bolts splashed harmlessly against the barrier as the machines absorbed the attack. James's mouth went dry. He had commanded them, and they obeyed. More enforcers poured into the street. Dozens now. Armored, disciplined, their glowing weapons raised as they marched forward in unison. James clenched the device tighter. "Drive them back." The swarm roared forward, splitting into groups, attacking with speed and precision. Explosions lit the night sky as the street filled with fire and smoke. The ground shook beneath James's feet. But for every enforcer that fell, more appeared. Black SUVs screeched into the street, doors slamming open as reinforcements spilled out. Drones buzzed overhead, larger and more heavily armed than the ones James had already destroyed. The woman grabbed his arm. "They will not stop. They know what you carry." They know what it means. James's voice cracked with fear. Then what do we do? We can't fight all of them. Her glowing eyes locked on his. We don't have to. We just have to wake more. James looked at the device, the swarm, the chaos outside. There are more machines. Everywhere, she whispered. Buried under your cities, your oceans, your deserts. Waiting for humans to remember them. You are not just one man, James. You are the key to your people's return. The words hit him harder than the explosions outside. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. The enforcers weren't here for one man, they were here for all of humanity. Suddenly, a shadow fell over the warehouse. James looked up and his heart nearly stopped. A massive ship hovered above the city, its hull black as night, its engines rumbling like thunder. Floodlights cut across the street, illuminating the battlefield. The enforcers stopped firing and looked up, waiting. The woman's face went pale. It's their command ship. They've come to end this. A voice boomed from the ship, deep and mechanical, echoing through the streets. Human. Surrender the relic. Or we will erase this city from history. James's knees weakened. Thousands of lives lay above him in skyscrapers, homes, and streets. He couldn't let them be destroyed. He turned to the woman. If I fight, they kill everyone. If I surrender, humanity stays buried. What choice do I have? Her gaze was fierce. The choice your ancestors made. Stand. Fight. Even when the galaxy says you cannot win. James raised the device high, his voice shaking but strong. Then let's remind them who we are. The symbols on the device flared, brighter than ever before. The ground split open with a deafening crack. Across the city, hidden panels of steel and stone slid aside. Machines rose from the earth. Not just a handful this time. Hundreds. Thousands. Drones, walkers, sleek fighters with wings of light. The sky filled with glowing blue as humanity's forgotten army awoke beneath their feet. The enforcers faltered, their lines breaking as fear rippled through them. The command ship's lights flickered as it scanned the impossible sight. James felt the connection surge inside him, overwhelming and vast. Every machine, every drone, every weapon, waited for his command. The woman's voice was barely a whisper. Do you feel it now? The truth. Humanity was never weak. You were always the storm. James lifted the device, his fear burned away by something fiercer. Then let's finish this. The swarm roared, surging into the night sky. Beams of light tore into the enforcer ship, its hull sparking as it reeled from the assault. The city shook with the fury of a war that had been buried for centuries. James stood at the center, the device glowing like a star in his hand, the machines of his ancestors answering his call. For the first time in living memory, humanity was awake again. And the galaxy would never forget it.